Good afternoon. We live in wildly disruptive times. I'm going to share with you 7 crucial lessons for navigating these times. First, let me talk to you about some of the disruptions that I've lived through and that we're living through right now. When I first saw each of these technologies, I knew the world would never be the same. The world of work and life would never be the same. Right when I graduated from Caltech in 1981, it was the exact month the IBM PC came out. I went down to Computerland in Pasadena, bought my $5,000 machine with 1 floppy drive and 256K of RAM. But it was so remarkable. It was mind-boggling what that computer could do. And it really did change the world. And we all lived through the PC revolution. Then, a few years later, the spreadsheet came out. Lotus 1-2-3 came out. Lotus became the first public unicorn. It was an amazing, amazing product. I remember when I first saw what Dan Bricklin and Bob Frankson had done, where you could have formulas in cells that would recalculate even as you sorted them. My mind was blown again. And I thought work was going to change dramatically, and it did. Then, when Netscape came out, and you could navigate everywhere, again, the world changed. For me, it led to me forming IdeaLab and starting companies like crazy because I saw so much opportunity when you could connect with the planet the way Netscape allowed you to do. And then, of course, the mobile revolution with the iPhone, and when you could have all your music in your pocket, a browser in your pocket, navigate and communicate with the world. Well, the 2 most recent disruptions that I feel are as big as that are when PV, solar panels, became cheaper than fossil fuel in 2018, and in November of 2022, when ChatGPT came out. I remember the smile on my face when I first saw what ChatGPT could do, and I thought, this is going to change the world forever. And I believe it will. I believe maybe it even already has. I want to talk about these changes, and then what lessons I've learned from 50 years of entrepreneurship that apply to this disruptive change. So first, PV becoming cheaper than fossil fuel. For the first time in history, you could make electricity cheaper than burning things. That had never happened before. That turning point was 2018. From all the investment that happened in PV panels, all the learning curve, all the cost reductions, you finally could make electricity cheaper than burning something. And really, it's remarkable that with the complexity of a power plant and all the engineering that goes into it, the cheapest way to make electrons today is to point a piece of glass at the sun. It's just remarkable what we've done to make that possible. And now when you can point a piece of glass at the sun, that piece of glass is very, very inexpensive because of the scale at which we're making it. So take a look at this. A window at Home Depot costs $417. The same size PV panel costs 1/4 of that, $109. The one on the left just lets the light through. The one on the right makes electricity. So it's just unbelievable what we've done with technological scale. So that's one revolution that I think is just so powerful, and it's needed badly because we are burning a lot of stuff and putting a lot of CO2 in the sky. Every one of us in this room makes about 1 pound of trash per day. But not very well known, each one of us makes about 31 pounds of CO2 trash that we put up in the sky. 31 times as much stuff into the sky as to what we put in the wastebasket. And that has done unbelievable things. It's 100,000 cubic meters from each of us every single day. If CO2 was more visible, we might have done something more about it sooner, but it's invisible, so we don't really realize it. But we're sticking all of that trash up into the thin layer of our atmosphere. And just to give you a sense of how much we're putting up there, I tried to make the numbers that are so staggeringly large, 40 gigatons a year, manageable. The Pyramid of Giza weighs 6 million tons. All of humanity on Earth is putting a Pyramid of Giza into the sky every hour. A Pyramid of Giza of CO2 every hour for the last 50 years. There's 500,000 pyramids of Gizas floating around the Earth in weight of CO2. That's what we've done to the planet. And that's why the extra heat we're adding to the Earth is warming the planet. The extra heat we're adding to the Earth from that layer of CO2 is the equivalent of 3 Hiroshima bombs going off every single second. So it's unbelievable what we need to do to fix that. But at the same time, there's a disruptive opportunity. Energy is the biggest industry on Earth. We have a chance to change things. This is a graph of the GDP versus over time, over the last 800 years, per capita. You can see it's flat, 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 then it takes off like crazy once we learn how to burn things, once we learn how to make cheap energy. So if we can make that cheap energy renewable, we have a huge opportunity to remake the entire energy industry, and energy is 10% of the entire global GDP. The entire global GDP is $100 trillion, energy is $10 trillion. So that means we can build $10 trillion of new businesses every year to take advantage of solving this problem. So that's one big problem, one big disruption, something we need to do something about. The other one, ChatGPT, November 2022. This has been worked on for a long time. People have been working on AI for a very long time. But I say November was this turning point when the whole world saw what actually could be possible. It's a huge turning point. And it's because of this. There's always huge disruptive change when the cost of something approaches zero. So with the internet, the cost of distribution approached zero. You could reach the whole planet. With the cloud, the cost of storage approached zero. So you could make so much larger things, movies and images and so many things you could share when the cost of storage approached zero. With generative AI, the cost of content is approaching zero, the cost of content creation, the cost of knowledge. So new things are going to happen that are just extraordinary because as that price goes to zero, it's just absolutely unbelievable. And we've seen what happens. Nvidia, just in the last year, their revenues from their data centers have gone up by a factor of 5 times increase in revenues. 2 decades ago, Nvidia was 100 times smaller than Intel. Today, its market cap is 10 times larger than Intel. It's unbelievable what's happened because this demand for AI has made these chips so valuable. In fact, when Nvidia delivers their chips to Cisco, they go in an armored vehicle because the chips are now so valuable. These chips are like brains that are going to power our future humanity. So it's so powerful to make these at scale and to make them available at scale, but the applications we're going to come up with this are just unbelievable. So NFX had a really great report that said AI is like water. It'll be like water, like electricity, ubiquitous. It'll be everywhere. So coming up with sustainable differentiation is going to be hard. That's why I'm going to share some of these lessons with you about how to make that sustainable differentiation. It really is incredible how it's going to be embedded in everything. It's not going to be something we talk about, just like we don't talk about the internet being behind everything anymore. This is a great chart from Roy Bahat from Bloomberg Beta. He broke down different innovations in AI into 3 categories. Now, some innovations of AI could use all 3 of them, but he broke them down into these 3 categories. Looms, which are things that could automate a person's work. Slide rules, which make a person better. Or cranes, which extend what a person can do, enabling something to lift something they couldn't have even lifted before. We're seeing all of these new types of applications being built on top of AI, and that's where the whole great frontier is going to be. Just a few weeks ago, Sora announced this new capability of building a video. You saw lots of examples of that. This is one example of this woman walking down the street in Tokyo. I met with this woman, Mish, on the lower corner here. She used to be the CMO of Microsoft. I had dinner with her the night that this came out, and we were talking about it, and she said, if she wanted to make this video at Microsoft, she would have had to get talent. She would have had to clear the street. She would have had to get the camera crew. She would have had to get the scripting written. It would have cost $2 million. And now this costs $20 and a couple minutes and a prompt, and you can make this. So this is crazy disruptive. And then just this morning, Alibaba announced a new thing called Emo, where you can take a picture of someone and have them actually sing anything to it. So there was DiCaprio singing Eminem. There was this woman right here. They actually took the face of this woman singing Dua Lipa. It's incredible, and it wasn't uncanny. It was uncanny how good it was. It wasn't in the uncanny valley of unbelievable. So we're going to see so many disruptive things happen to Hollywood, of course, and there's all kinds of copyright issues around this too. But again, lots of room for innovation. Sam Altman was positing that we might have the first one-person unicorn company. Well, with the distribution of the internet, it allowed companies to build to be a billion-dollar company because they could impact 1 billion people because of that power of reaching so many people on the planet. Think back to Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci comes up with a great idea in Florence, and the total reach of his idea is how far he could go on a horse. He could get to Rome, he could get to Milan. That was his total reach, that radius. With the internet, the reach became the whole planet. All of a sudden, we saw this explosive impact that you could make with an idea, with your brain. Well, with AI, it's not just your brain, it's how many brain resources you can now spin up. So I think we're going to see things where you can spin up 1 million PhDs to solve a problem. Now, humans will come up with the problems. We'll look at the things that humanity needs to solve, but we'll be able to spin up brains to solve them in a way that was never before possible. So we're moving from not only large language models, but to large action models, large video models, and much more. So we're going to see a lot of innovation around this. Okay, so with that backdrop on those 2 innovations, 2 disruptive innovations with low-cost solar energy and with AI that's going to change so many things, how do we smartly participate in these disruptions? So I'm going to share with you 7 lessons that I've come up with from 50 years of starting companies. So over the last 50 years, I've probably written down 5,000 different ideas for companies. We've turned 150 of them into companies. 50 of them have had successful IPOs and acquisitions. 40 of them are still operating, but that means we've had 60 failures. So I learned a lot from those failures. I want to try and extract some useful lessons from those that might be beneficial not only to you, LPs, but also to your companies, to your portfolio companies, and so on. And I'd be really happy if some of them are beneficial. So these are the 7 biggest lessons. I'm going to go through each of them with about 1 minute. So let me take you through each one of them. The very first one, challenge the status quo, be bold. It is so important with an idea to stand out. You heard earlier today, to be contrarian, to do something distinctive and different. When I look back at ideas that we tried that weren't bold enough, those had a much lower success rate. So really standing out matters a lot. The problem is, all great truth passes through 3 stages, according to this great quote by Arthur Schopenhauer. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed, because once you start getting some traction, some incumbents start getting worried. And third, it's accepted as being self-evident. So if you're going to do something bold, you have to fight to get through all three of those stages. But when you do, when you make something self-evident, you make something happen that would not have come into being before. So it's really, really valuable. So first thing, be bold. But if you're going to be bold, the day before something is a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. This is a great quote from Burt Rutan. So if the day before something is a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea, you're going to get a lot of arrows in your back. You're going to have a lot of naysayers. So that's my second one. Use naysayers as rocket fuel. So this is a picture of Coco Gauff after she won the US Open. And she gave a quote on court when she was interviewed afterwards that gave me goosebumps when I heard her say it, which was, "To those of you who were naysayers to me, you didn't believe in me. You thought you were putting water on my fire, but you're actually putting fuel on it." So a very important thing, when you're doing something bold and different, you need to try and take those naysayers and arrows in your back and turn them into fuel. Very, very hard to do, but very, very important to do. Now, I had to live through that. I lived through the dot-com crash, for example. This cover of Fortune had me smiling. I just lost $800 million in 8 months. Why am I still smiling? Well, it was a really, very tough time. I was still smiling, though, because I saw the following thing. The market went up like crazy and went down like crazy. But when you have conviction and you believe in what you're doing, you can power through it, even though there's lots of naysayers. There were people telling me, entrepreneurship is over, Bill. You should just give up. But I saw the following thing. Look at that orange line. I saw the utility of the internet going up. I saw the usage going up. I saw every single trend going upward. The only thing going downward were valuations. So I knew it was worthwhile to continue. The demand for this product, the demand for this service, the demand for the opportunity was only going to grow. I had to try and take those naysayers and turn them into rocket fuel. Very important thing. Next lesson, find great timing. Well, I gave a whole TED talk about this particular item, but it's very, very important to look and see, is the world really ready for what you have? You can make something great and be ahead of your time. By definition, you're going to be ahead of your time if you're trying to make a breakthrough. But you really have to look to see if everything's in place to make your idea succeed. We heard earlier today about Uber taking off right when GPS was on enough iPhones to make it possible. If you had tried Uber earlier, albeit a great idea, it wouldn't have made it. So many different ideas. We talked about Webvan earlier today, and then Instacart later made it work. So timing really, really matters, and you have to be honest about it. So this first company of ours is one example of successful timing. Goto.com was the first pay-per-click keyword search engine. It was at the right time. Search engine quality was going down. Search engines needed monetization. Internet needed a better way to track the paper performance. This took off like crazy. Company went public. We sold the patents to Google. The company eventually got acquired by Yahoo. Really perfect timing. Bad timing. Next company, Evolution Robotics. I started this company in 2000 when I saw Wi-Fi taking off, digital cameras taking off. I said, oh, home robots are going to really, really be a thing right away. Way, way too early. I was way off. In fact, it hasn't even happened today, 24 years later. We pivoted the company. We went into floor cleaning. We sold the company iRobot. We did okay, but my vision for a general purpose home robot still has not happened. The world really wasn't ready for it yet. All the other things that had to happen to make people accept that just wasn't there yet. Another company we had that was good timing. Digital cameras were taking off. We saw that digital camera software was really bad, but the digital camera adoption curve was on the S curve on the very, very steep rise part. So we made a company called Picasa to manage your digital photos. This company was acquired by Google and became Google Photos. This was timed right because the market was really ready for it. It's very, very hard to do. I talk about this like it's easy. It's not. I don't get it right most of the time. But it's very, very important to really look at it very carefully. Your portfolio company, your fund, anything you're doing, is the world really ready for what you're doing at that moment? Because that's really going to be an obstacle. It's really, really hard to get over. Next one, iterate like crazy. Startups have almost every disadvantage compared to incumbents. They're smaller, they have less money, they have less brand, they have fewer people, everything. But the one thing they can do is iterate faster. Action produces information, and it's really important to just keep on learning. Before I started IdeaLab, I was in packaged goods software, and Dell had come out with computers that was crushing Compaq and HP because they had more turns on inventory. And my new model after we started IdeaLab was turns on knowledge. How can we have more turns on knowledge faster? How can we learn faster than the competition? That's one thing a startup and a fund and everybody can do. It's turns on knowledge that matter in the world today. I think that's really one of the most important lessons I learned from starting so many different companies. Create a remarkable offering. It's so hard to stand out. You need to make your offering stand out. I talked earlier about being bold, but you also, this great quote, marketing is a tax on being unremarkable. That means you're going to have to pay lots of money to convince people to use your product if you don't have a remarkable offering on every dimension. And that could be the price, the distribution method, the functionality, anything, but it's really, really important to be absolutely remarkable. I'm going to go through the last few very quickly. Assess your commitment. I recently taught a class on entrepreneurship at Caltech. It's the first time I ever did that. It was way harder than I thought, but it was way, way more rewarding than I could have imagined. There were 31 people in the class, undergraduates and graduate students. I had them each come up with 10 ideas. They couldn't all come up with 10 ideas, but I said, even just a problem statement, just something that you think should be better in the world. Then I had them rank them on a whole bunch of different criteria. And one criteria that we threw in is, how committed are you to it? Will you work on this for a week, for a quarter, for a year? How long? 2 people came back after that observation and said, I would work on this for the rest of my life. I said, well, that's the one you're choosing. That's the idea you need to choose. If you're that committed, that really is what matters for making an idea work. And I think commitment matters so much, and you'll see how that applies to this last one. Be persistent. So the emotional journey of creating anything great is really, really hard and almost always has a dark swamp of despair in the middle. It starts off all great. You think this is all fantastic. And then all the problems start happening. And then the dark swamp of despair occurs. So if you have that commitment, you can power through that dark swamp of despair to come and rise out on the other side and really make something a success. So I think that commitment and persistent ties together, including with try again. I learned this from Reid Hoffman. I learned at a lean startup conference once that Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn was his 3rd social network. He failed at 2 social networks before starting LinkedIn, but he learned something from each one that gave him a new idea for something to try. So if you learn something new from a failure, it's very, very valuable to still try again. And that's something I never would have done before. I'd heard that from Reid, that he had actually tried 3 times. So it's almost like taking another at-bat after you've tried something and it didn't work out. So we're witnessing probably the 2 biggest revolutions ever. It's bigger than the PC revolution. It's bigger than the industrial revolution, bigger than the mobile revolution. These 2 revolutions, the clean tech revolution and the AI revolution, are unbelievable. It's really the best time in history for changing the world. I really hope that some of these ideas are helpful to you. I'm so grateful to so many of you in the audience. So many of you in this audience have helped me in one way or another, either invested in me directly or indirectly through one of your funds. So I'm really, really thankful. You've given me such a great ride in this industry to make a chance, make a difference. And I'm really, really thankful. Thank you very much. You've been a great audience.